This is ContraZoom,
where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Rachel Ho.
Today, we are going to preview the most anticipated movies that are coming out for the rest of 2024. Now, there is a stipulation here. These are movies that have confirmed release dates. So there's a whole bunch of movies that are like, yeah, it's probably coming out this year, not totally sure. And we're also not including festival movies. The confirmed release date is a theatrical, wide release, streaming release, something like that, where it's concrete that everyone can go see it, not just, oh, this is getting its premiere at Cannes or Toronto or wherever else, what other festivals might have big premieres. Those movies might eventually also come out this year, but they don't have confirmed release dates yet for the most part. So because of that, most of the movies we are talking about today are going to be, bigger budget movies, which we obviously do love talking about, but we also do talk about a lot of smaller independent festival type films. Those will not really be talked about as much today. But before we get into all that, I don't know. I haven't gotten any messages about this, so I can't really say for sure, but I don't know if any eagle-eyed listeners have noticed on the ContraZoom Pod social media sites, the different bios that I have for them. They used to say that it is hosted by both myself, Dakota, and by you, Rachel. And I don't know if anyone has noticed it. I have not told anyone about this, but I very quietly removed your name after the end of the Oscar season, which is when I kick over to the new season. So the last episode was the best movies of the year, and then I take a little break, and then I come back and start a new season. But yeah, I had removed your name from that, and I haven't received any messages, so I don't know if anyone has noticed or not, so I don't know what that says about this. But yes, Rachel has a bit of a announcement, or so to speak, if you wish to call it that. So I will turn things over to you, Rachel. I guess first to say is, how are you doing today? Are you doing well?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So basically, Dakota fired me, and
this
episode is effectively my exit interview. That's what we're doing here. No, I just had made this decision to step away from the podcast. I think we've been doing it for, 2 years together. No, not even. I want to say a year and a half, maybe.
I can tell you the exact time that you started. Your very first episode came out on October 27th, 2020, and that was episode 129, which was our Remake Rebecca. It's funny because I had just met you online, and I was going through my schedule that I keep on Google Sheets. I listed your name as Rachel Kimberly, which was very funny, which is your middle name, not your last name.
My middle name, yes.
So I don't know why I did that. But that was the very first episode that you did. And all in all, if my counting is correct, you are on 90 episodes, which is a pretty insane amount, considering things. And now this is going to be episode 279. So the fact that we went from 129 to 279 is pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool. Well, I genuinely thought it was like a couple of years, but clearly it's been. But now that I think about it, yes, it was during the pandemic that I responded to a post that Dakota put up on Reddit. And I was at this point just kind of goofing around with not even a career. I don't even want to say that, because at the time it was not that at all. It was just buying time. I think a lot of us were in that state, and during the pandemic, of just having a lot of time. If you were lucky anyways, you had a lot of time on your hands. And we ended up doing, what was it? I think 1 or 2 episodes, just standalone episodes. And then eventually we got on really well. We did really well, I think, on air. Is that on air would be the thing to say. And then since that time, my job has just changed. I went kind of in a very different direction than I ever intended to. Even when I started kind of slowly writing reviews, and things have just gotten a little bit crazy for me. Things have gotten to the point, in a good way, like busy to the point that I don't feel like I'm able to commit a good amount of time to Contra Zoom anymore. And so I told Dakota, I broke up with him, what would it be, like maybe a month ago now. But last year I wasn't on nearly as much as I had been in previous years, partly because I was busy, but also I had just kind of gone through some personal stuff with my family. So that was the reason for that kind of absence as well, which I don't think I ever addressed it in the last year. But point is, we are having a what Gwyneth called a conscious uncoupling, and it has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, but I'm not going to say this, like, it's not like a goodbye. It's not like I'm never going to come back on here. I will come back on, but just for now, I need to step away just to kind of get my life in order.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of saying it. And unlike, Gwyneth Paltrow saying a conscious uncoupling when she means divorce, and you know that they're never really going to talk again.
But they lived in the same house together, though.
We're
like
still going to talk
and Chris
and be
Martin
friends.
still live together, and they have been excellent co-parents, the two of them. So we can continue in their tradition. No, you're right. Like, we are obviously, like, I think over this time, I mean, I said it to you before, where it's like, I think I talk to you more than I talk to some of the people I consider to be my closest friends, because like every week we would come on here and talk, and not just about movies, but like we would say, how's it going with our lives and things like that. So yeah, no, definitely not us being like, we're not friends anymore or anything like that. We're just professionally diverging. Is that a better way of saying it?
Yeah. And like, I'll give like a little behind the scenes information here. You kind of talked a little bit about how I wouldn't call it an audition process, where it was just more so I asked you to come on the show a couple times, and like you said, we had really good chemistry with each other almost right away, it seemed like, which is kind of crazy. The amount of different people that I've podcasted with, and the people that even have podcasts sometimes don't really know how to have a conversation over with what we do. And right away, you and I, our personalities just clicked right away, and we understood how to not step on each other, and how to, move a conversation forward by asking, questions. Even if we knew the answers to them, it was still a way to guide a conversation. And so that's why it made a very natural choice for me to ask you to come on and be a co-host with me. And it also worked because you were self-employed, that because the time difference where, I'm in Vancouver, you're in Toronto, so the 3-hour time difference, you were like, yeah, I can take a little break from what I'm doing and hop on, and we can record for a couple hours because it's a convenient time for you, but it's also convenient for me because I sort of set my own schedule. And then like watching you, blossom into what you've become has kind of been absolutely insane. It's been 3.5 years, I guess, since we started, and you had, had your own website where you published a couple things, and that was basically all you'd kind of done. And you came on the show and very quickly just started getting jobs. The Toronto Film Critics Association, TFCA, named you like the Emerging Critic of the Year a couple of years ago. You're now the editor over at Exclaim. You have your own website that you own, the Asian Cut, which is very popular. All this sort of stuff. I'm just like constantly blown away. And, I joke behind the scenes with our mutual friend Matthew Simpson, where I'd be like, it's only a matter of time before she leaves me. She's going to become too big for me. And sure enough, that is, sort of what happened. I do this
No,
sort of
hold on. No, it isn't getting too big. No, let's relax on that. It's
too big
just
for
becoming,
her britches.
Yeah, I got real Hollywood about things. I joined the Toronto Film Critics Association. I'm like, too big for this. No, it's just it literally is just timing. Like it's a funny thing because, like you said, the fact that I was self-employed, and I've been self-employed since for 5 years now, more or less. Not just doing writing. I've been self-employed in what my actual field of work was meant to be. So yeah, I think that was helpful, but then it's just because I was managing it, and again, like during the pandemic, it was just quieter time. And then like in those years after the pandemic as well, coming out of it, like things just got quiet, but then also your schedule got busier as well because you started getting a lot more jobs. So our schedules, I think, started to tighten up a little bit, where they didn't always match. Like we weren't able, neither of us quite had the flexibility that we had in 2020 or in 2021, which I think is only a good thing though, because that just means we're busy, and it's unfortunate, but it just means that we're busy doing the things that we want to do, which is, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. And like this podcast is a very much a super labor of love. Like any costs that come from this podcast, I pay for out of pocket, website hosting. If I, choose to invest in anything as far as post-production and things like that, gear I've bought, that's all just come straight out of my pocket. And some people have been very, very kind to donate to the coffee account that I shout out at the end of every episode, which is always, I am so flattered and generous. Anytime I get that email, I'm like, oh wow, thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. But like, yeah, like you're saying, we both kind of have to focus on ourselves, and my schedule is kind of all over the place. I do work in the actual film industry. Nothing in a very sexy or glamorous way, but I do work in film, which means I have crazy hours, and my schedule is very limited and stuff like that. And so it does make it a little bit harder scheduling and all that fun stuff. But like, I think the best part of what worked for us is our tastes overlapped more than enough that, we both liked, classic Hollywood cinema, and we like small independent movies, and we like movies not in English, and we like big Hollywood blockbusters. So it was never an issue of like either one of us, mostly me, throwing out a suggestion of like, hey, would you be cool to do this? Would you be able to watch this in the next week? And you were always down for that, which made it super easy to kind of, come up with the crazy ideas that I have had over the course of this podcast. And you have always gone along with it for the last few years. And the few times where either the schedules didn't line up or wasn't something totally up your alley was always fine. And I tried my best to bring in people that, that it suited their taste or their skill set to talk about something like that. And in the case of sometimes like bringing in another voice, like when we do our like Noirvember episodes and bringing Alicia on because that's her specialty or anything like that. I think that's always worked really well in our favor. And like, I don't know if at this moment, I don't plan on having another permanent co-host. Just
it's hard
because
to move on from me. I know it's really difficult when
you joke about it, but like, it's true. Like, the way because it isn't just a scheduling thing, but that is a big thing where our schedules were able to line up so nicely for such a long period of time. But I haven't had someone with my previous co-host where it's been so easy to come up with ideas. And like, I'll sometimes would send you something crazy and be like, what do you think about this? And then you kind of help shape it a little bit better. And like narrowing down our focus or picking which movies, if we're doing a theme to do. I don't know. I don't have someone right now where I have that sort of movie chemistry with, where I don't know if I want to bring someone else on to sort of, help raise this baby with someone else. So you still have visitation rights, I guess is the best way to put it.
I appreciate that. Custodies are still there. It's good. We can do, it's like physical custody. Actually, no, because it's physical with you.
It's
over
digital baby.
Digital custody. No, I'd never done something like this before. Anybody who knew me before I started doing this kind of working in this industry knows that it's completely against my nature to be on a podcast, to like put myself out there, because I'm very much somebody, like, I kind of prefer to stand like behind a camera as opposed to in front of it. So doing this the very first time, I remember being so nervous about it. And again, just really out of my comfort zone. But I think because I was just in this kind of phase of life where I was trying to take chances on things that I wouldn't normally do. And the pandemic did have stuff to do with that. Like it had a bit of an effect. But I was also just in a bit of a transition period in my work life, generally speaking. So I was just really like, I'm going to try something new, and it'll be what it is. If it, and I think coming on that episode with you doing that, Rebecca won. The fact that you made it so easy for me was incredibly encouraging to actually continue to do it. So like the next time you asked me to come on, I didn't have any hesitation. Like, I'm that kind of person that I will make an excuse up last minute and be like, oh, sorry, I can't make it for whatever reason. because I just get too nervous and I get kind of out of my head to do it. So the fact that you were so welcoming and gave me space to talk, and the fact, yeah, you're right. Like, we just kind of naturally got on very well, and very quickly we got on too. So that made it 1,000 times easier for me, though, to revisit this idea that I could do a podcast and that, like, I could come on more and more. And I got a lot more comfortable with it as time went on. And as you know, as great as I am, obviously, but no, I think it had a lot to do with you and helping me kind of get through that, even if you didn't really realize you were doing that.
Well, thank you. I feel like that's all the patting on the back I deserve.
I'd like to hear more about how you cannot replace me.
Starting next week, you'll get to hear our brand new co-host. Stay tuned for that. No, like you said, this isn't going to be the end. This isn't going to be the last time you're on. I've already told you, you always have an open invitation to come on whenever you wish. You still have access to my scheduling document. So anytime you see anything that you want to come on to talk about, you're more than welcome. And there's already things lined up where I'm going to be bugging you to come on, because I know it's something that's up your alley.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very clear thing. Like, this is not me saying peace out, Dakota, forever. You can't get rid of me that easily, so I will come back.
Excellent. So I guess then we should move on to what our topic at hand today is. And as I've already said, it is our most anticipated movies for the rest of the year. I've already laid out the qualifiers of how we're eliminating a bunch of movies that you probably love to hear us talk about. And this is from June onward. So I'm going to start with the first one, and we're going to be going back and forth. We're going in chronological order for our own lists. So there's going to be a little bit of jumping around, but it is more or less going to be talking about the movies coming out in order. So the first one that I want to talk about is a movie called The Bikeriders.
From the beginning?
Yes, please.
It was the golden age of bike riders. And I never felt so out of place in all my life. That's when I saw him for the first time. It took my breath away.
I'm Benny.
5 weeks later, I married him. I thought I could change him, you know? Not to be different, but to be, I don't know, like he's wild.
Hey! Told you to take that jacket off.
You'd have to kill me to get this jacket off. What about the bar? Burn it down.
This is the new movie from Jeff Nichols, and I'm just going to read, I guess the easiest way to do this is the IMDb description. After a chance encounter, headstrong Kathy is drawn to Benny, member of a Midwestern motorcycle club, the Vandals. As the club transforms into a dangerous underworld of violence, Benny must choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club. This movie, is going to be interesting because it was supposed to come out last year and it got pushed back, and I feel like it's got to push back the second time, and it's kind of coming out in a weird time of June 21st. I think it was supposed to be kind of like in the real studio dumping ground of like February or March, and it got pushed back a little bit, thankfully. But it stars Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, and then of course Jeff Nichols, his go-to guy, Michael Shannon. But I'm really excited for this. Like, all you have to say is a Jeff Nichols movie, and I'm going to be there. Like, if you're not familiar with Jeff Nichols, he's done Take Shelter, Midnight Special, Mud, Loving. He doesn't have a bad movie in his filmography. I haven't seen his very first one, Shotgun Stories, but I hear that's also excellent. But literally every other movie he has made has been absolutely excellent. And he also kind of like changes his genres up, so you can't even really pinpoint what a Jeff Nichols movie is. The only constant of what a Jeff Nichols movie is that Michael Shannon's involved, and that's also more than enough for me to go to this. So it's very interesting. It sort of looks like what's the name of that Marlon Brando motorcycle movie? Blanking on what that one was called.
Not Tango in Paris?
No, no, not Last Tango in
I
Paris.
have that in my head right now because I just saw that Matt Dillon's going to be playing Brandon.
Yeah, I saw that picture. Yeah,
very
it looks like
excited
The
about
Wild
that.
One is what it's called. It sort of looks like it's going to be like a bit like The Wild One, although far more gritty and realistic. But this cast is absolutely stacked. I'm very excited for it. There's a whole bunch of other like character actors showing up in this that I really like. Mike Feist is also in it. So shout out to all the Challengers fans. Norman Reedus from the Walking Dead franchise, and a few other notable people as well. But I'm very excited about this one. Are you looking forward to this one?
Yes, I think I too am a big Jeff Nichols fan, and that cast is pretty extraordinary. I'm also very fascinated, like you said this at the top, why it's been getting pushed back so much. So like initially it was meant to come out right in the thick of awards season. And then it made up a couple of really weak excuses, in my opinion, for why they wanted to move it. And now it's coming out at, like you said, a really, really odd time for a movie like this to come out. So I'm kind of curious to see like if there was a reason why the studio maybe, I don't know, lost interest. But it was also, who owns the movie right now? Because I remember it got sold.
Yeah,
like
it got passed around.
What was it? 21st Century that owns it right now? I can't remember, but it's just fascinating to see like you have these top actors who are coming off of pretty big movies in the last few years as well, and then you just have Tom Hardy and Michael Shannon, who are just well-known people. But I'm really, really interested to see what's going on with this movie because the background drama of it is fascinating, but also atmospherically, it looks incredible. Like there's such a really cool 70s vibe to it, and like 70s kind of Americana as well, which I find a really interesting time. So I am really, really looking forward to this one.
So I'll say first the distribution stuff and then my theory on things. So it looks like it was originally going to be a Disney 20th Century movie, and it played festivals, and then it got delayed due to the strikes, and then New Regency took over, and then Focus Features ended up taking over, with Universal handling the international release. So it's been handed off a few times. My theory is, from what I've heard, Jodie Comer is the star of this movie. Yet in all the marketing, we see Austin Butler and Tom Hardy. So I have a feeling that they don't know how to market this movie, and it is not going to be what it looks like, because it looks like it's going to be like a gritty motorcycle gang, violent, Martin Scorsese type movie, and like done on motorcycles. But that's not really Jeff Nichols' style. And like I said, all of his movies are kind of different, so it's really hard to sort of nail down what his style is specifically, other than good. So I wonder if these studios don't know how to market this movie and don't know what to do with it. And that's why they're like, it's also rated R and there's lots of violence and uncomfortable stuff. We don't really know what to do with this movie. So we're just going to sell it to someone else that wants to take over it. And so that's my theory. I don't know how right I am, because from what I gather, when stuff like this happens, it's usually because the movie sucks. But we haven't heard any rumors of like, oh, it came out of the festival and everyone hated it. No, it came out of Telluride, and from what I heard, it was pretty well received by critics. So it's not because this movie sucks. So I don't know what the deal is with why it keeps getting delayed and why it keeps getting sold.
The delayed thing would make sense to me from a marketing perspective, but the fact that it keeps getting sold is what troubles me, because I can understand if they don't know how to market the movie, and that's such an interesting topic as well, like the idea of putting out a marketing materials for a film and then people going and seeing it for that reason. It's completely, like we just saw that with Civil War. A lot of people went in thinking it was this big action blockbuster, and it certainly is not that. And that only angers people, really. That's all it does. So I find that just like an interesting topic, generally speaking. But I feel like with this movie, if it is a marketing thing, is it so much of an obstacle that 20th Century Fox goes, we don't know what to do with it, with all the resources that they have to do it? Like I know what you mean though. Like I know that like that is such a massive thing. And if it were only the delay, then I'd be like, yeah, I'm probably 100% right. But because it got sold is the thing that is so different in this. Like, why did Disney effectively, like the parent company, say, we don't even want this on our shelf, like just get rid of it, kind of thing, which is fascinating. So I feel like we'll obviously never know the actual, machinations of what went on with that. But it'll be interesting to see the movie and to see what the end product is. And also too, I wonder if they make any changes, like editing changes or anything like that. I haven't heard that is a thing, but you never know. That could also be an issue as well.
Yeah. I don't know. We only have to wait a couple more weeks and we'll know soon enough whether or not this movie is awful or they just were pushing it back for reasons that either may never come out or may eventually come out. So I don't know. All right. Well, what is your first movie?
A movie that needs no description because it's a sequel of a badass film from 1996 called Twister, and the sequel is called Twisters.
Once-in-a-generation tornado outbreak continues across Oklahoma.
We've never seen tornadoes like this before, and we need your help.
No, I don't chase anymore.
Kate, we can save lives.
I'll give you 1 week.
All right, fellas. We got PhDs from NASA, FEMA, and Kate, she's the smartest person I know.
Hey, dudes. This is interesting. Who are they?
It's Tyler Owens. Calls himself a tornado wrangler.
If you feel it,
Scared of nothing and I'm scared to death.
You know, our crew is not like your crew.
I can't breathe and I catch my breath.
We don't need PhDs and fancy tech. Sometimes the old ways are better than the new.
Well, you can always trust a guy who puts his face on a t-shirt.
And it's coming out on July 19th. And yeah, this is effectively going to be a standalone sequel to Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt's film from the late 90s that I absolutely adored when I was young. I watched it on VHS a million times over. It's a kind of a silly movie, but the 90s were a silly time of people chasing twisters, which I do think is a real thing. Like, people actually do this for sport, but also for science, because we do need to know about these things. So the trailers up to now make this look exactly how you think it's going to look. It looks ridiculous, but it also looks like it could be a lot of fun. And this is Glenn Powell is going to be playing the lead role. And he's just having quite the moment now. He had that rom-com with Sydney Sweet, which is called, I'm blanking on it, Anyone But You? Yeah. Which I haven't seen, but people were really big on that. Obviously, Top Gun was a massive thing for him. He also did another one where he was a pilot again. But more recently, he's going to be in Hitman that played at TIFF and is going to come out at the end of May. He's really having a time in Hollywood right now, and he really looks like your prototypical leading man. And then he's also able to play up different sides to him as well, which I find him to be a really compelling lead, a really compelling new-ish face to Hollywood. So I can't wait for him to take on this movie. And then Daisy Edgar Jones is also in it, who I adore from, what was that movie with Sebastian Stan? Why am I blanking on that?
I don't know.
It's like a one-word.
Fresh.
Fresh, thank you. She's fantastic in that. I know she's really big in Normal People, like that's where people mostly know her or relate to her with. But I was introduced to her through that movie, and I think she's absolutely incredible. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. It's just a bit of nostalgia, and I hope they bring in a little bit of that 90s funk. Now, Dakota, it is a 90s movie. It is slightly actiony. Is this a movie you didn't like it because you were too busy watching Fellini or some shit like that?
I'll have you know, I didn't start watching Fellini until last year.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Actually, I did know that too.
No, I did not watch it when it came out, but I did watch it, I don't know when, a while back for the first time. And I like it. I like Twister. It's a good movie for sure. Watching this trailer, I think it's about as good as you can kind of hope for a legacy sequel for this type of genre movie. And the fact that Lee Isaac Chung is the director definitely has me super intrigued. And Joseph Kosinski is the writer too, which is also kind of crazy and weird. He's the director of Top Gun Maverick and a few other Tom Cruise things. But yeah, Glenn Powell is the selling point. Like, he is right now the hottest thing in Hollywood and about to, I think, become a super duper star. And I think this is going to be a huge coming out party for Daisy Edgar Jones as well. The trailer looks fun. I think, like, it's got everything that you'd want from a movie called Twisters, which is crazy. I think, sadly, the only thing missing is Philip Seymour Hoffman.
And Bill Paxton.
And Bill Paxton. Two impossible things, unfortunately.
It is, and it's coming out like dead in the middle of summer as well. Sorry, I shouldn't say dead after we just mentioned Bill Paxton, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I didn't mean it like that, but it's coming out like right in the middle of summer. And I think this is the pinnacle and the prototypical summer blockbuster movie. And as much as I love my, awards prestige type movies and like those little quirky indies and things like that, I have a massive soft spot for summer blockbuster, because I think for a lot of us, that's where we started to enjoy film. Like, you kind of fall in love with movies when you're young through these really big spectacles. And so Twister for me was definitely one of those ones. So I'm excited what they do with it. I at the end, I just hope it's fun, because that's all it should be. It should just be a fun movie.
I guess the main question is, will this be the highest grossing movie of the year? I think that's kind of the biggest question. I know right now it's Dune 2, but like, does this have the possibility to surpass it?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I mean, unless this ends up being kind of like the sleeper Top Gun thing, right?
Yeah.
But Top Gun was a very special, incredibly special type of movie. And like, that was something that I feel like it only comes around once every decade or so. And I think people are excited for Twisters. I think that there's a lot of us who grew up with the original, and now we're like obviously a lot older now, so we're excited to see what they do. But I don't know, unless it's amazing. Like, if it's amazing and it's one of those that, like the Top Gun, that people just kept wanting to go back to the theaters to watch it and, watch in IMAX and all that kind of stuff, then maybe. But right now it just kind of stands to me as something that's going to be fun for a hot minute, and then we'll kind of forget about it. Not in a bad way. Like, it's going to serve its purpose, and then we move on from it.
Only 3 movies this year have surpassed 500 million. Sorry, scratch that. Only 3 movies have surpassed 200 million so far. And that's Kung Fu Panda, Godzilla, Kong the New Empire, and Dune Part 2. And Dune worldwide has made 710 million, which is a lot, but like, this is nowhere near, Marvel Endgame days sort of thing, Avengers Endgame days, where we're looking at, 2 billion as the gross sort of thing. So but I don't know. I think it's possible.
I would say even then, though, those big numbers that Marvel put up, only Marvel was putting those up. And like, that is such a unique time. Like, it's going to be something that in film studies classes, and like maybe they already are studying it in film studies classes for all I know, but it is a period of cinema history. Regardless of how you feel about superhero movies and Marvel films, that is a very defined period of cinema history, and one that I don't think will be repeated anytime soon. So honestly, I never really like when people compare the numbers to that, because
that's fair.
I just feel like, one, the world has changed quite a bit. Like, just generally speaking, we've changed a lot since Endgame came out. But also, that was such a unique time that even like, I was into Marvel. I liked it. I wasn't as into it as some other people were, but it was a really special thing for like people. If you enjoy movies, like, what a special 10 years that was, to ride with Iron Man right through to Endgame. Like, that was really cool. But I feel like it's kind of almost inflated numbers when we look back, and especially today, thinking of like what can come out. Just as Barbenheimer, like, just as that whole thing is a very specialized niche thing that falls outside of what the norm is. And I feel like Twisters is going to fall within the norm more likely than being an outlier.
I mean, both those movies passed over $1 billion too, which obviously was its own thing. So like the fact that Dune Part 2 only has 700 million only, I say that, I think it's in play for at least, top 2, top 3 of the year.
Glenn Powell will help it. I think that there are going to be people around the world who like really want to watch it. And also like Dune is for as much as that was a blockbuster movie on its own, it's actually a very niche film. Like it's a very
that's what I'm saying.
Movie.
Yeah.
And that was what, 3 hours? We're talking 3 hours, and it did pretty well. So I don't know. I hope it does well. I hope Twisters does really well. I hope that it's as great as the original. It won't be. Let's be honest.
This comes out a month after Hitman. And Hitman will be on Netflix. So I think a whole bunch of people are going to be like, ooh, this is my new favorite actor.
Yeah. And he's super sexy in Hitman. Like, it's not, I'm not saying like as a good looking man, that is like a super sexy film, the two of them. It's unbelievable.
All right, let's move on to my next film, and that is Kind of Kindness, which is the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and that comes out on June 21st as well, same day as the Bikeriders. Yes. If you don't already know that Yorgos Lanthimos is having a movie come out so soon after Poor Things, this is the news of the year for you. This is actually the first time I've actually read what it's about. A man seeks to break free from his predetermined path. A cop questions his wife's demeanor after her return from a supposed drowning, and a woman searches for an extraordinary individual prophesied to become a renowned spiritual guide. I've watched the trailer, and I had no idea that any of that was what this movie is about. 100%, much like Bikeriders is sold to me by being a Michael Shannon movie, Kinds of Kindness is sold to me by being a Yorgos Lanthimos movie. He is pairing back up with his old screenwriting partner. I don't know how to say this. Emis Filippo, who wrote The Lobster, The Dogtooth, and Killing of a Sacred Deer with him, which are his weirdest movies. And so this looks to be really weird, highlighted by the fact of the recent character posters that have come out, which are equal parts creepy, unhinged, and exciting all at the same time, where you have the actors wearing giant oversized face masks of their own faces, especially the Willem Dafoe one, which is just pure Willem Dafoe. But it stars Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Willem Dafoe, Margaret Qualley, Hong Chow, Hunter Schafer, and a few other notable names as well too. We're like, this is just catnip for anyone that likes weird, absolutely bonkers, batshit insane movies. Yorgos is your guy, and the fact that we're getting this so close after Poor Things is just icing on the cake, and I am super duper excited for this one. How about you?
I'll be honest, I knew nothing about this movie. I haven't seen the trailer. I didn't read anything about it. But I was very pumped for this one because, like you said, it's Yorgos. So when Yorgos comes out of the movie, it captures your attention and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Obviously, I'm going to watch it. And then I think the fact that he's pairing up with Emma Stone again so soon after Poor Things, that in particular made me interested because they've now done, what is this? 1, 2, 3.
This is third, yeah.
Third. And then I believe they did a short at some point as well. I could be wrong, but they have a very good working relationship, clearly. Like they have a very good director, actor, that like there's such great actor-director duos in cinema history. And I think that they are one of them. Like I genuinely believe that they are one of the great kind of push and pull actor director combos that we're gonna see. And like, so I'm super excited, not because of what it's about or the plot or anything like that. It's Yorgos and it's Emma, so I'm right there with them.
Yeah, I just want to see what this freaky Greek man has up inside his twisted little head.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I mean, like it'll be interesting if you've seen any of his movies, like that you're always going to be in for a little bit of a surprise. So it is interesting though that it came out, so it's coming out so soon after Poor Things.
He shot them back to back, which is crazy because they look nothing alike.
This one, they announced it relatively early on too. Like it wasn't like so bizarre, but I won't complain about that. More Yorgos. But then if he doesn't come out with another one next year, then we're going to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be the same awards player that Poor Things was. I know people are hoping that maybe this might be Jesse Plemons' year or something like that. Or maybe Margaret Qualley might be an awards contender.
I can't wait
really
for
know.
her to get like a big breakthrough. I saw her in a film. Again, I'm so bad with movie titles today. She did it with a guy who looks like Jon Snow, but it wasn't Jon Snow.
Oh, you're talking about Sanctuary.
Thank you. Yes, I
know exactly what you're talking about.
Doesn't he look like Jon? He
Yeah,
looks like
he
Jon
does,
Snow. But I love that movie, and I didn't know who she was. I clearly don't know who he is because I'm calling him Jon Snow. But I adored that movie, and I thought she was tremendous in it. So I'm really, when I saw that she was in Poor Things, I was like, oh, she's in Poor Things, and then she's barely in it. So I was a little bit disappointed in that, but I cannot wait for her to become like a big thing because I do think she will be.
Yeah. I think the first time I noticed her was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was like she was the hitchhiking girl that Brad Pitt keeps picking up, who she introduces him to the ranch, the cult stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Listen, Tarantino
Rachel.
and we're not.
I have to break up with you.
We don't gel. This is why Dakota fired me. Okay, so I won't watch these Tarantino, Wes Anderson nonsense. Like it's fine.
Just go to your next movie.
I know. So speaking of great auteurs, we got M. Night Shyamalan up next. M. Night is coming out. His daughter, funny enough, has a movie coming out before his called The Watcher, and then after that, M. Night is back with a movie called Trap.
Right? Cooper. Jamie. What's with all the police trucks outside? The cameras everywhere, Jamie. I'm not supposed to tell. Something happening? Don't rat me out. I won't. You know the butcher? The freaking nut job that goes around just chopping people up? Well, the feds or whatever heard that he's gonna be here today, so they set up a trap for him. This whole concert, it's a trap. They're watching all the exits, they're checking everyone that leaves. There's no way to get out of here.
Effectively, from what I understand of it, I'm not great about knowing what the movie is ahead of time because I try to go in as cold as possible, but there is effectively a serial killer who is getting trapped by the police at a concert. And I think his other daughter is in this. Like, she plays the singer who is, I don't know if she's helping the police. I don't know what the M. Night twist is going to be. But the reason I'm interested in it, I'm not a huge M. Night fan. Nothing against him. I just never, with the exception of kind of the obvious few movies that he did early in his career, I just felt like his shtick kind of got worn after a little while. The thing that interests me in this is Josh Hartnett, because I felt like I hadn't seen Josh Hartnett in something in a real, like since I was a teenager. And then all of a sudden he was in Oppenheimer and he was absolutely incredible in that. And it made me think, I was like, be nice to see Josh Hartnett in a movie again. It turns out, though, he has been steadily working all this time, just not in massive films. But he is the lead in this movie. And so I can't wait to see him again in something because I think he's an incredibly underrated actor. So I'm looking forward to it simply based off Josh Hartnett.
Now, I know you, as you've already said here, you don't watch trailers very often. Have you seen the trailer for this yet?
No.
Okay.
Is Hartnett going to be covered up? Like, what's his deal?
No. It was hard for me to take the intensity that this movie is supposed to be seriously when this was shot at the Rogers Center.
Shut the hell up. Seriously?
Nope.
That's
the very
hilarious.
first shot, it's like, oh, that's clearly under the Gardner. I know exactly where this is. Del Toro likes shooting under the Gardner too because it looks cool. And then it shows Hartnett and his daughter walking up to the venue, and it's the Sky Dome.
That's amazing. I love that. That's amazing. M. Night shot a movie in Toronto. Good for him.
Yeah. So the whole time it was just me laughing. I'd be like, it's the Sky Dome.
I feel like people from here are the only ones, like, we get really, like, I don't think New Yorkers ever get excited when they see New York in the movie, but anytime we say it, especially if we see something in Toronto that is, well, I don't think it's meant to be, but like they don't cover it up to make it look like something else. If we see that in a Hollywood movie, we get really, really excited. So, oh, that's fun. I had no idea they shot this in Toronto. That means Josh Hartnett and I were in the same city. Well, that's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
That's really exciting.
The trailer doesn't look great. I will say.
I would say, I would venture a guess, though, M. Night is not your guy. Like, he's not a director that you keep tabs on.
Yeah, I like some of his movies. Specifically, I really like what was it called? Unbreakable is my favorite one of his.
That's a good one, yeah.
My wife made me watch a couple of his movies because she's like, you got to watch them. So we watched like Signs and The Sixth Sense and The Village and stuff like that. And I quite like them. They're all pretty decent. I have not been, I know, keeping up with him since his renaissance the last few years.
Has he had a renaissance? Is that what the people are saying?
Yeah, I would say so, because like he had done stuff like Lady in the Water and The Happening and The Last Airbender, and people were like, "Oh, okay, his movies are awful."
He took a step away, I guess.
Yeah, and then he came back with The Visit, which people were like, "Oh, this is actually pretty decent." And Split and Glass were successful. I know Old was popular, but I know a lot of people didn't like it. But it was very popular.
I wasn't a fan of that. I'll say,
and Knock at the Cabin was the same way, where it was very popular but not very well received.
M. Night, for me, I think, I know this sounds so stupid because he wasn't even in this episode, but like in Always Sunny, they reference him.
Oh, yeah.
And they keep talking about the Shyamalan twist. And so that's all I can think about now when I think of an M. Night movie is like, what's the Shyamalan twist?
Well, he was in the one episode where Dee was an extra in one of his movies.
I don't think he was in the episode, though, was he?
Or is it just supposed to be a Shyamalan movie?
They're just like, they're on the Shyamalan set, and like, she's there, but she's not, no, I don't think they've ever had him. It's just because he's from Philly. But then they have that episode where they find another like South Asian guy, and they're like, "Hey, you come write for us because you obviously you look like M. Night Shyamalan, so therefore you must be a good storyteller as well," which is very funny. Great show, excellent show.
Yeah. All right, so my next movie is Wolfman, coming out October 22nd. This is directed by Lee Winnell, who I know most notably did like, I think he directed the original Saw or wrote it or something like that, and has done a whole bunch of horror movies, none of which I've seen. But he did The Invisible Man a couple years ago, a movie that I was sort of mixed on, but overall I liked it more than I disliked it. And this is his continuing remaking the Universal monster movies. This time he's doing Wolfman. And that excites me because I do love the Universal monster movies. The original ones are some of my favorite horror movies and definitely my gateway into the genre. And so he's doing a Wolfman movie. I don't know if it's going to be connected to The Invisible Man or not, because I remember at the time they were trying to reboot Universal Monster Universe, whatever they were calling it, and they fucked it up, and then they were like, "Oh, let's do The Invisible Man," and then they were like, "Oh, this is going to be the starting off point," and then I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but he's back. He's doing another monster movie, and it actually stars the Jon Snow lookalike.
What's his name? Should we name
Christopher
him?
Abbott.
Okay. Just keep calling him he looks incredibly like Jon Snow, though, doesn't he?
He does, yes. He very much, and I'm blanking on what
I know.
name is.
Kit Harington is the
Kit Harington. He does look like Kit Harington. Yeah. And it also stars Julia Garner, who I think is a terrific actor. I know in our Best Movies of the Year episode, I praised The Royal Hotel, a movie that you were pretty mixed to not liking, but I adored, and I thought she was terrific in that. And Christopher Abbott is definitely one of those actors where I'm like, how come you're not more famous, man? You should be more famous. You are such a good actor. The first time I saw him was in that Aubrey Plaza movie, Black Bear. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's such a good movie. It's so weird. It's like this weird, unhinged thriller where you don't really know what's going on because it keeps changing what kind of movie it is, and then you're not even sure if you're watching the same characters from one portion of the movie to the next. Very interesting. It's basically a three-hander between Aubrey Plaza, Christopher Abbott, and Sarah Gadon, who I really like as well. And then he was also in Possessor. He was the lead in Possessor, the Brandon Cronenberg movie, which I really liked. But yeah, he's been in a few things, always sort of as a supporting character, like Poor Things. He shows up at the very end of that as the gigantic asshole that was married to the real Bella Baxter. If anyone knows.
Oh my God, he was in that. I didn't.
Yeah, he was the goat.
Didn't even realize.
He's also an Intergalactic.
That Jon Snow was in this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you hear me say the Intergalactic part?
No.
Yes, he was Reed in Intergalactic.
Well, that's different because how would
I was just trying to get brownie points with you.
That's him. Like, you're just reading his Wikipedia page. That doesn't really, it's not really a thing. Or, whatever. The point is, I had no idea. Like, yes, that is definitely him. Also, you say, why isn't he more famous? I make the joke about Jon Snow, but I do genuinely think it's because he looks so much like Jon Snow. Sometimes when there's like two actors who come up at about the same time and they look incredibly similar and they're about the same age, there's just not room for both.
He's American Jon Snow, yeah.
Yeah. See, he looks so British.
Far superior. He does. He's a way better actor. Way better.
Yeah, yeah. Kit Harington hasn't really done much.
No, he was in like Eternals and then
I'm trying to think what else is he in.
I think he did like British TV. That's what he's doing now. So I don't really know. But all that aside, are you excited for another Leigh Whannell monster movie?
Not really, if I'm completely honest. I'm not a big monster creature feature kind of person. Like, I've never been that taken with those stories. And I'm also, Blumhouse is very slowly getting onto my shit list because I just feel like they're doing too much at this point. They're releasing far too many movies that there's just no quality control anymore. So I don't look to them as a fail-safe, like, okay, if Blumhouse comes out with a movie, it's going to be a good horror movie. I don't really have that faith in them anymore. So I don't know. I will probably watch this, but I'm not, I'm not completely sold that this is going to be something that's up my alley.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, what's your next movie?
It is a movie that I do know is up my alley because I've seen the original one, which is called Speak No Evil. This is based off of a Danish movie that I saw at, I want to say Sundance. I think it was Sundance, 2 years ago now. And that was, the director for that one's Christian Taftrup. Apologies if I didn't say it correctly. But I really, really love that movie. I thought that was such an incredible horror movie. It was really unique. It was really interesting. It had a lot to say beyond just kind of the gruesome and the uncomfortable horror that was put in front of you. There was a lot of kind of underlying threads in there that I just found really interesting. And so, yeah, I was very taken with that movie. I was a little bit annoyed when I saw the trailer for this. I did see the trailer for this one because at first I thought, this really looks like the movie. I didn't realize it was Speak No Evil. I thought, this really looks like that Danish movie that I loved a couple of years ago. And then sure enough, turns out it's a remake. And I hate and I have to say, I haven't dug out my archives for this yet. I interviewed Christian Taftrup for that movie when it came out for that shelf. And I swear, I don't think I wrote this in the copy or anything like that, but in our interview, we did talk about like Scandinavian films getting remade by Americans and how he really didn't like it. He hated the idea that Americans were people were just selling these movies on to the Americans to remake them. But I mean, I'm sure they offered him a good amount of money to do this. So I don't blame him at all, but I just thought it was kind of funny. However, this is another Blumhouse production. Like, Blumhouse is behind this one as well. And like I just said, for Wolfman, I really don't think that they are the horror house or even the film house that they used to be. And I don't, like, again, I'm just repeating myself, but I just don't really have a lot of faith in them anymore. And we've seen some good remakes of Scandi films. Scandinavian movies kind of have their very uniquely weird sensibility to them. And I think that the original film their nationalities had a lot to do with the messaging that came across. So the fact that they were very polite Danish people, that they were a bit more brash kind of Dutch people, like that played a lot in the dynamics of the film. And I don't believe that that is going to be at play at all in the American version. So I'm curious to see it, as not because I'm looking forward to watching it, but I'm just kind of curious to see how they remake it and what they take away from the film, but also what they add in their own flavor as well. And this is going to be directed by James Watkins, and James McAvoy is leading the film, and he's an incredible actor. So I'm pretty sure that at minimum he'll be good in it. But this is one of those that I'm not anticipating it for necessarily a positive reason, but I am curious about it. Did you ever watch Speak No Evil, the Danish one?
No, I remember you praising it a lot, and I don't know if it made your list for top 10 of the year, but I do remember you being very, very high on it.
It's a great movie. It's an excellent movie.
I do see James Watkins' filmography. He does some like pretty dark horror movies. So was the original one like a pretty heavy movie, or was it more thrillerish?
It's a heavy movie. I wouldn't call it a thriller. No, I mean, there are probably moments of like thrillery moments, but I'd say on the whole, it's just kind of a very heavy, very dark film. And I think the implications of what happens in the film are more terrifying than any sort of more typical horror. Like, it's not gothic horror. It's not jump scare horror, slasher horror. It's nothing like that. So it's an interesting movie, and it's one of those things, like, I would love to be able to point people in the direction of the Danish movie, but I don't know how people can watch it legally anyways. I don't know where like people can watch this kind of movie, but if you are able to procure a copy of it somehow, go watch it. It's a really, really incredible film.
Well, I don't know if you said it, but this new one comes out on September 13th, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Is that Friday 13th? I think that is Friday 13th.
Yeah, it must be.
That's exciting.
All right, so my next film is Gladiator 2, coming out on November 22nd. This is Ridley Scott's follow-up to his previous film, Gladiator 1, I guess it's now what we'll call it. But this is about his son, Russell Crowe's son, who is now grown up, and Russell Crowe has nothing to do with this. And it is being played by Paul Mescal as the adult son. It's got Denzel Washington and Pedro Pascal and other great thespian actors. And I'm excited. I don't love Gladiator the way a lot of people really, really love it. So it's not like the nostalgia glasses are on for me. I know Ridley Scott has been super hit or miss lately for people. Some people more miss than hit. But I will say, especially with The Last Duel, that still holds really high regard for me. So I still have him in good standing. Napoleon sucked. There's no way around it. The movie was just not good.
Whoa.
Not good movie, Rachel. You have bad taste if you think it was good.
It's not great. Okay? It is not great. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. It was not bad. Great. I'll say, I'm just going to interrupt you here. And for everything that we said, this is why this works between us. I'm just going to talk over you right now. I think what I love about Ridley Scott right now is I don't think he's ever really given a shit about what people thought about him, but I think truly now, after all the success that he had, including the first Gladiator, the standing he has, that people, like, he is Sir Ridley Scott, right? Like, he has absolutely nothing to lose at this point. It doesn't matter if he puts out 5 bad movies right now. He will still be Sir Ridley Scott, like, and people will have respect for him as a filmmaker no matter what. And I love that kind of unhinged, really doesn't care, like truly, truly, truly doesn't care about the consequences of what he's doing right now. And that's why I'm interested in seeing this movie. Also, Denzel's in it, and I obviously will watch anything Denzel Washington is in, but I just think Ridley is in such an interesting time in his career, and then mix that with his personality, which is quite a funny personality in my opinion. I just think he's so unhinged that's part of why I think Napoleon is funny, because it's a silly movie about a silly little man. But I love that. Like, he just didn't care. He didn't care about accuracy. He didn't care about, like, even did things make sense. He just did what he wanted to do, like what he thought would be fun. And I'm kind of curious to see how that works with Gladiator 2. I also hope they rename it. Gladiator 2 is such a lame title.
It is a bit, yeah. But I'm glad
Gladiator,
like
they could just do what Twisters did.
No.
Just plural.
I'm glad it's not like a Gladiator saga.
Yeah.
The rise of Lucius.
Would you rather Gladiators or Gladiator 2?
Gladiator 2.
I'd say Gladiators. It's silly. I just want this movie to be silly. I genuinely want it to be so dumb. Like, I just think it's going to be really fun. I want it to be a fun movie. I don't want it to be serious. I don't want it to be downtrodden. I just want it to be fun, and I want to see Denzel do some cool shit, because he always does.
Ridley Scott is Paul Schrader with a budget.
Yeah, fair enough, actually.
In terms of personality.
Yeah. His interviews are crazy. Like, he really does. It's the thing of, you get that from his personality. He never cared what people thought. He always did his own thing. But I think it's just with age that has come with him, that it's just like he truly, truly, truly has no qualms about saying anything, even mildly or incredibly offensive. He's just like there for it. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think what gives me hope is Paul Mescal is on an insane hot streak right now.
Yeah.
And I think him being cast doesn't say anything in terms of the quality, because I think, being like, hey, Ridley Scott wants you to star in his follow-up to Gladiator. Will you be his leading man? I think that's a no-brainer for anyone to say yes to. But the fact that Denzel is in it says something way more interesting to me than Paul Mescal. And I think Paul Mescal is a terrific actor.
I don't think Denzel being in it says anything either. I think him and the two of them have a history, right? Like, not just Ridley, but like with what's his brother's name? Tony
Scott. Yeah.
So it's like Denzel has a history with Ridley Scott, and I think, and we also don't know how big of a role Denzel Washington he could be in it for like 5 minutes for all we know. But it's Go on.
What I'll say about Denzel is he specifically, since about the late 90s, has consciously never taken a part in a movie where he was not the top billed person, the biggest character. And so this is like the first movie in like 25 years where he is not the number one lead.
That's interesting.
Like, seriously, look at his filmography. He is never not Top Gun.
Interesting, because he's Denzel, and
I think Philadelphia was the very last one where that was a Tom Hanks movie, and that was in 1993. So yeah, we're going 30 years since he was last, and he's been the lead ever since.
That's because King Kong ain't got shit on him. No, I think Denzel. So maybe that even says more, though, that maybe this is not a really big role. But I don't like. I'll just kind of return to that point. I don't think Denzel being this says much about the quality either, because I could see it being not a favor, but just his old buddy Ridley Scott calls and says, Denzel, can you do this thing for me? He goes, okay. Right? Like, Denzel slowed down quite a bit. He doesn't work nearly as much as he used to. So I think when he chooses stuff, it's not necessarily choosing things out of the quality of the work or the script that he's being presented. I think he's looking now for, like, who does he want to spend time with? What is going to be a fulfilling experience for him, as opposed to this is going to be the thing that gets me the next award, because Denzel doesn't care about that anymore. So yeah, I'm interested in it. I think Paul Mescal is cool. I really like him. And obviously Denzel's the best, and Pedro Pascal as well. We haven't talked about him. He's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. What is your next movie?
I just realized this is like Wolves. There's a lot of plural stuff going on right now. So this is called Wolves, or my next movie is called Wolves, which is grammatically incorrect, similar to the Toronto Maple Leafs, which
We're not getting into that right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Just talk about the movie.
Well, we haven't discussed hockey, but anyways, there's a film coming out. This is going to be on September 20th. It's called Wolves. It is John Watts. But the more interesting thing that I think a lot of people have, the reason this movie has popped up on a lot of people's radar, not to say John Watts isn't a director that's interesting and has made good films, but George Clooney and Brad Pitt are producing it and are also starring in the film. I don't know too much about this film. I mean, on Wikipedia, they just have like a one-line thing. It says 2 professional fixers find themselves hired for the same job. So I talked about like the duos, you know, Yorgos and Emma, and I think George and Brad Pitt are 2 people who everyone loves to see them on screen individually, but then when you put them together, obviously the Ocean's movies were incredible and very classic, I think, in specifically for that era as well. But George Clooney and Brad Pitt are 2 of kind of the movie stars that like you and I grew up with. Those, and they're getting older, and so they don't work nearly as much as they used to. Same like we just said for Denzel. So it's really interesting to see them come back and see them do a film, generally speaking, but to put them together, I think it's really fun, and I can't wait for it. It doesn't sound like it's going to be funny, but usually when the 2 of them are doing something, it's kind of comedic anyways. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it'll be an interesting pairing, and I hope anyways, it'll just be a good time. But the fact that they're releasing it end of September makes me think that it's probably maybe a bit more dramatic like. But I'm game for that as well.
Yeah, this is probably the one that we know the least about, where, like you said, there's like a single sentence
that doesn't really say anything either.
Yeah. And there's like, you know, behind the scenes photos, but no official publicity stills have been released of this. So there's like nothing to go on this at all. If we get goofy Brad Pitt and goofy George Clooney, I am all for that. Yeah. Like, there's a reason why like they were the biggest movie stars in the world for a period of time. And when they do goofy, funny, light work, that's just them at the top of their game. And they have such a chemistry. Like, there's a reason why the Ocean's movies have continued to live for so long. And like, granted, the second 2 are not good, but that first one is just like,
what is happening in this episode?
Are you going to tell me that Ocean's 12 is a good movie?
Yeah, you don't like Ocean's 12. I'll say Ocean's 13. I'm not too high on it. I don't think it's that. I think Ocean's 13, they kind of really jumped the shark at that point. Ocean's 12, though, it's not like a heisty Ocean's 11 movie, but I think it's a good movie. I really enjoy Ocean's 12. I know someone who prefers Ocean's 12 over 11, which is objectively incorrect. However, I still say I think 12 is a good movie, though. I do think 12 is a good movie.
Is this someone that I'm going to need to like blacklist from this podcast?
No. This is okay. You don't know this person, and I won't shame them. I don't think they listen to this, but I won't shame them.
That said, Ocean's 11 is probably, you know, up there of maybe being one of the most rewatchable movies of all time. Like that is just like pure comfort movie.
It's one of the most enjoyable movies. Like it's just one that I don't care who you are, it will put you in a good mood. And it's that movie that if people still watch TV, like, you know, when we were younger and you would just see a film on TV, it's the one that you go, oh, it's on. So you just sit there and watch it. Like, it's such
like, I'm leaving in half an hour, but I'll watch a half an hour of it.
Doesn't matter because it's time well spent, no matter, even if it's just a few minutes watching it. And George and Brad have everything to do with why that movie works.
100%. John Watts, if people don't know, he directed the 3 most recent Spider-Man movies,
Spider-Man,
the Tom Holland ones. So, like, take that as you wish. I think his career outside the Spider-Man movies is, you know, fairly mixed. He hasn't done a ton. No. He did that Kevin Bacon movie Cop Car, which I don't think anyone saw it. And that's kind of about it. The rest is like TV and stuff like that. So this is really maybe going to be a bit of a, let's see what you have. Let's see what you can do outside of the Marvel world. You've got some money, you've got some stars. What can you do? So it's going to be really interesting to sort of see if this is going to be a hit or a miss, because unfortunately, I think more so George Clooney than Brad Pitt. George Clooney is not the actor he used to be. Like, he still turns in some good stuff from time to time, but most of his movies in the last, 10, 15 years aren't that good. He still has it within him. Every once in a while, he does some great work. Will this be it? I don't know, but I hope so.
What was the last George Clooney movie you watched that you genuinely enjoyed?
Let's see. Hail Caesar.
That's the last George Clooney movie you saw that you liked. So when did Hail Caesar come out?
2016. He hasn't done a ton since then.
Interesting. Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, I thought that movie came out a lot later than I thought. Interesting.
And then before that, Gravity, but he's barely in. Movie isn't successful because of him. The Descendants, which was 2011.
Yeah. Well, he was on a roll. Like, looking at it.
Yeah.
Like that is an incredible run that he had from Ocean's 11 straight through. Even before that, actually. Three Kings is an amazing movie. Out of Sight is an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had an incredible run. Let me see, what's my favorite movie that he's the last thing that I saw him in? I mean, might be Hail Caesar. I saw Ticket to Paradise, and that's not, I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. It's not anything that I'm like, oh, it's great. But like, he was very good in it. And like, actually, it's a good comparison to this film. Well, I don't know if it'll be, but that had him and Julia Roberts. And that's, again, kind of playing that old nostalgia of a set of movie stars that came up at a specific time together. And we all kind of have very fond memories of seeing them on screen together. And their chemistry, no matter that film wasn't the great, like, it's very stereotypical. It's a very, you know what the ending is when the movie starts, but it was an enjoyable film to watch because George Clooney and Julia Roberts are able to work off each other in such a great way, because not only are they amazing actors just on their own, but their chemistry is amazing. And I've said amazing a million times now, but that's also George Clooney and Brad Pitt. And I would also add that's Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts as well. So
yep.
What a crew. What a crew of actors during that time.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about my last film, which is Nosferatu, coming out on December 25th. So this is, once again, a horror remake, which is very surprising that I've got two horror films on my list, which is very un-Dakota-like. But if you know anything about me and are a longtime listener of this podcast, I love Nosferatu. It's Robert Eggers, which, is a huge check mark in my books. I have loved all three of his movies, The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman. I love the Nosferatu story. We did a whole podcast on that, which I'll link to in the show notes, where we watched 3 different versions of it. The original silent one from F.W. Murnau, the what's the German director's name? Wow, why am I blanking on names now? The Werner Herzog one. Wow, I can't believe I forgot that. And then I don't remember the director of the third one, but it was about the making of the movie of the original one with Willem Dafoe,
which I loved, and you were not that hot on. That's such a fun movie. That's amazing.
It's very 90s. But yeah, this is another remake of Nosferatu. It seems like they're going to change the story a little bit because it's focusing on a female lead as opposed to a male lead, which it normally is. And, this movie, you hear Robert Eggers doing Nosferatu right away. You're going, yep, that is the exact person I want making this movie. He announced it several years ago, and then it got shelved, and it was very disappointing. And then they announced that they're going to do it again, and it was a very exciting date for me and everyone that loves horror movies. But the movie went through a bit of casting changes, and I think it both got better and worse with the casting changes. So originally it was going to be Harry Styles and Anya Taylor-Joy, and Anya Taylor-Joy, huge thumbs up. Harry Styles, thumbs down-ish. And then they couldn't do it because the movie got delayed, and so they got recast with Bill Skarsgård, which is huge thumbs up, and Lily Rose Depp, which is sort of thumbs down.
I don't know enough about her to be up or down. You know what I mean? Like, obviously we know who she is, but
yeah,
I don't know her. I don't know her She's like the J-Lo to my Mariah. I don't know her.
She is a step down compared to Anya Taylor-Joy, because we know what Anya Taylor-Joy is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know that she would be able to do this because she's worked so well with Robert Eggers before.
Also, her face just lends well to this kind of movie.
100%, yeah. But this movie also stars Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Willem Dafoe, who is back in a Nosferatu movie, which is A+ for me, A++. Nicholas Hoult, who was just in Renfield last year, which is kind of a story of Nosferatu, and Ralph Ineson, who was in The Witch, which is awesome.
Green Knight.
So yeah,
well.
I'm very excited for this.
Green Knight, I just want to say.
Yeah, his voice, so incredible, so incredible. So I'm very excited for this movie. I'm curious to see when a trailer comes out, to see what it will all look like. But I trust Robert Eggers.
I am also very much like, this is exactly my kind of movie. This is something I'm really, really interested in seeing how it works out, and specifically because this is Robert Eggers' second film working with Universal, and I've listened to some interviews that he did after The Northman came out, and I don't think The Northman is bad. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's not as strong as his other two films, and I kind of got the impression that through his interviews, I think
he didn't like working with them.
Sorry?
He didn't like working with them.
Yeah, I think he found it's that kind of Faustian thing, right? Like, you get a lot of money and you're able to work this massive budget that he didn't have, but now all of a sudden you have a lot of oversight. You have people telling you, no, you cannot do this. Yes, you have to do it this way. And I think and so I'm curious to see in a film like this, which is such a Eggers movie. Like, Nosferatu seems like if I had to pick one director working today to do this, it would be him, right? Like, it fits really well. But I'm curious to see how that works with Universal. Like, has he overcome that, fixed whatever the problems were that they had making The Northman, and does the result of that mean that it's going to be a better film than The Northman was? I think because one of the reasons The Witch and The Lighthouse work so well is that he was really crafty and clever and really focused on something beyond just special effects and things that money can buy. So I'm very curious to see what happens with Nosferatu. And it's like, yeah, we did that episode on it, and that opened up this story to me in a way that I hadn't really, I knew Nosferatu. I'd seen the very first one, from, what was the silent era one, the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, it was like 1922.
Yeah, I'd seen that one, so everyone's familiar with the Nosferatu story. But after doing that episode, I became a lot more interested in it, and like a lot more kind of hyper aware of it. So, and I think this got announced not that far after we did that episode, if I'm not mistaken, actually, because I remember thinking the timing was really funny.
Yeah, I don't know if it was we had talked about how it was announced and then canceled,
mm-hmm.
or it was just about to be re-announced or something like that. But we did talk about it, I believe, in the episode. I haven't gone back to check.
Also, I feel like Bill Skarsgård needs a bit of a win right now. He was in this movie. I'm like blanking on every movie title I've ever thought of now, with the exception of like Twister.
Boy Kills World.
Boy Kills World.
John Wick Chapter 4.
He was in Boys Kill World. Boy. I was thinking Boy Meets World.
Boy Meets World?
Boy Kills World. Okay. Boy Kills World. And that was not a great movie. Like, it's just not a great movie. And that played at TIFF. It didn't play well at TIFF. It didn't play well in the theatrical. They redid some of it as well for the theatrical. And then he's got the Crow movie coming out, I think in June, actually. That's going to be coming out. That could go either way. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but I really think Bill Skarsgård needs to win, because he's a great actor, and I think he deserves. I don't actually want to say he deserves better, because he picks the roles, or he allows his agent to pick his roles. So I'm hoping this one will kind of get him back onto the plus side of the equation.
So, random aside, how does Alicia feel about the Crow being remade?
She's interested in it, but she's obviously wary of it. It's a weird thing to redo that movie, because not just for the sake of like, let's stop remaking movies, as we talk about a movie that has been remade countless times now. But obviously, with everything that happened on set of The Crow, it can feel a bit dicey to redo a movie like that. So I don't know, and I don't think people weren't very happy with the early images that came out from that one too. But we shall see. I think we will pass judgment whenever it decides. Not whenever it decides to come out. It's coming out in June. That's when it's coming out.
Okay. Well, what is your last movie?
My last movie. This has just been a lot of sequels and a lot of remakes, kind of thing. But this is my last pick is Mufasa: The Lion King.
This story begins far beyond the mountains and the shadows. On the other side of the light. A lion was born without a drop of nobility in his blood. A lion who would change our lives forever. Mufasa.
Which is a really stupid title, actually, now that I think about it. But I'm a massive Lion King fan. The original 1992 movie is one of my all-time favorite films. I watch it at least a couple times a year. It's just one, I don't know, it's one of those movies that carried on from childhood for me that still retains as much entertainment as I got and as much enjoyment that I got out of it when I was a kid. I still have that same thing today. The photorealistic, whatever live remake they want to call the 2019 version, I didn't even watch it, I'll be honest, because from everything that I heard, there didn't seem to be a reason to remake it because they just redid it shot for shot using CGI. So it's not like the other Disney live remakes where you can actually do a live remake. These are still animals. And I had heard one of the big complaints was that the faces don't move because they were so concerned with it being realistic that they never really considered part of the reason kids enjoy cartoons is because cartoons have facial expressions. So I missed over that one. Didn't think I missed very much on it. Also, I think I said 1992 for Lion King. It's definitely 94. But this movie I'm interested in for a few reasons. One, it is something different. It is a prequel. It is showing Mufasa in a different time of the story. Also, Aaron Pierre is voicing Mufasa. And both Dakota and I absolutely adore a movie that he was in called Brother, which came out, 2 years ago now? I think that's 2 years ago.
Yes.
A Clement Virgo movie. And Aaron Pierre was the standout for that for us. And it's been interesting to see his career since, because that was such a Canadian film. And I think we said it when Brother came out, we were like, whenever this guy hits it big in Hollywood or just the rest of the world, people are going to go dig back into his filmography, and Brother is going to be one of those movies that stands out. He still hasn't really had that big breakout after that movie. Like, he was meant to be in the new Blade movie, and the new Blade movie has kind of gone through a lot of production hell. He was in a mini series playing Malcolm X, and I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see that, but he's excellent in it. The series itself is okay, but he is absolutely excellent in it. So I'm he's not doing the small indie stuff really. He's still doing kind of big name things, linking up with Disney to do something like this. But I'm curious about it. I am interested to see how he does. Kelvin Harrison Jr. is playing Scar, or voicing Scar, I should say. This movie doesn't have, I think the expectations from a lot of us are quite low because the 2019 version just didn't hit the mark. It just wasn't, one, it wasn't necessary, but two, I think it just didn't do what they had hoped it would do. It made a lot of money, though, I think, for Disney regardless. So I'm hoping this kind of revamps it, and I also hope it brings Aaron Pierre to people's mind.
Yeah, I'm not excited at all. I really didn't like the remake, especially the gall that Disney had to call it a live action film when it's not live action.
Like, logically, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would they call it
all
that?
CGI?
I know. Yeah.
like at least with the Jungle Book, there was a human actor involved that could be like, yeah, okay, sure, it's a live action movie.
But I would also say of the all the live action Disney remakes that they did, I think Jungle Book is the best one that they did. And
it's definitely one of the best. Yeah.
And it's because they put so much effort into it. I think that by the time they got to The Lion King, they were just printing money with this, weren't they? Like they could care less whether or not this was actually a good film. And that's why it was just shot for shot a remake of the 92 version. So
I mean, it's not a full shot for shot remake. They definitely add some stuff and change a little bit around and add some new songs, but it is more or less, yes, just a proper shot for shot remake, but not fully. It's hard to explain it. Yes, it is, but it's not at the same time.
But whatever they added, was it really worth it?
No.
Yeah, because the original's perfect. Like the original movie is a perfect film, and I never really understood why. I mean, this is a real tangent now, but like I don't get why, apart from just money making, which I know is the only reason they did this. But it's like, what was wrong with the animated films? I think they made excuses of saying like we're trying to introduce these films to a new generation, but cartoons don't go out of style. When we were growing up, we watched Cinderella, Snow White, and those are well before our time. Or maybe not Cinderella, but Sleeping Beauty and Sword in the Stone, those films. It's like those are animation styles that are well before our time. And so I don't think that it's a good enough reason to say, oh, kids can't appreciate 2D animation. Like, get out of here with that. But I don't know. I hope this does something for Aaron Pierre, because I so want his career to hit. And so far, that big thing that was supposed to be the big thing, I don't know what the hell's going on with that now. Like, it doesn't even, it just seems to be kind of languishing a little bit. So, but I want this to be a thing for him.
Yeah, I think, though, unfortunately, because he's not a name, like at least like with the last Lion King, it was like, oh, it's Donald Glover and Beyonce are voicing the two leads. Here it's now like, and it's Aaron Pierre as Mustafa. And it's like, oh, okay, who's Aaron Pierre? Like, he might be absolutely incredible and do a great job, and the movie might be a huge success. This movie might make $1 billion. I don't know. And I don't think that's going to help because you don't see him, so it's not like you know. And like, I have not heard what his voice sounds like in this. Is he like doing a character voice, or is it just going to be his voice? Like that, there's going to be some differences there. Like, so I don't really know. I don't think this is really going to do anything for Aaron Pierre other than the fact that like this will probably help him get work, but I don't think this is going to help him be more famous.
I just want him to get more work. I want him to get like good roles. I want him to get stuff that's like not this, not Marvel.
Yes.
Do something beyond that, because I think he's a far more interesting actor than this, whatever we want to call this kind of stuff. But I think he's such an interesting person, and he has an interesting face as well. So it's like he could do so much, and it would be a real shame if I shouldn't say all he ends up doing, but it would be a real shame if his focus is doing these more kind of name brand things.
Yeah. This will definitely get him work in other popcorn type movies, but I don't know if this is going to get him work in good movies.
Well, unless he does a really good job, you never know. Even
I don't know. Yeah.
His voice work might be amazing.
Maybe.
Are they doing motion capture? Did he actually crawl around? No.
I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it.
It wasn't like what was that guy's name? Benedict Cumberbatch when he did the...
Oh, Smog?
Yeah, wasn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's Peter Jackson, who, did that with, Andy Serkis and stuff, which made sense.
Mufasa, no need. No need.
No need. All right, so that is 10 movies that we are excited for. I'm going to list them all in the show notes. One thing I wanted to ask you before, when we were talking about our uncoupling, is do you have any favorite episodes that you did while you were on the podcast? Because I'd love to be able to share them if people want to check them out, if people want to revisit the better times.
Absolutely none. No, I'm of course. There are 3 that kind of popped into my mind straight away. The first one is the interview we did during Fantasia one year with Kelsey Egan for the movie Glass House. And One, you and I both really love that movie, and so it was really cool to be able to actually speak with the director. But I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's definitely the first time that you and I did an interview together. Is it the only time that we've ever done an interview together, though? Oh, no. Well, yeah, because I wouldn't count the Kyle Edward Ball as an interview. I don't think we really interviewed him. He was just kind of on the episode. But I don't think you and I have done, like, proper, this is an interview. We've both done a few here and there separately. You more than me, obviously. But I think that was the only time that we did one together. And I thought we did a really good job, because I've never interviewed somebody, like, still, I've never done that in the, like, a paired kind of interview thing. But one, yeah, I have a fond memory of that because, yeah, just the movie was good. I thought the interview turned out really great, and it was fun that it was like one that you and I got to do together as well. The other one I was thinking about was when we did the Unholy Trinity of Folk Horror. And I think this one, for me, the reason I liked it so much, similar to the Nosferatu one, is it was just the topic. And I think you and I were really on the same page about folk horror at that time. We had watched this documentary, Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, and we both really enjoyed it. So I think we were both kind of in a bit of a phase when it came to folk horror. And yeah, we did this episode looking back at what people considered to be the original 3 folk horror movies. And I was just really happy. That was just an enjoyable one, I think, to put together and research. But the one that I think, and I'm pretty sure this is probably, if I had to guess, on your list as well, and not that we're making a list about this, but it's the one where we talked about the Canadian Screen nominations. And we just ended up talking about the Canadian film industry as a whole. What was meant to be an episode that was kind of short, I think we talked about it was meant to be just like a 20-30 minute episode, I think ended up being right up to kind of our typical hour mark, because we were just really engaged in that conversation about the failings of the Canadian film industry and what we as Canadian film, as Canadians, but also people who enjoy Canadian films and try to support them as best as we can, what we would hope that the industry and the direction that the industry goes in. So I'd say those are probably the 3 episodes that I've enjoyed the most, or the ones that are the most memorable for me.
So for that last one, you're talking about the first time that we did it, where we were talking about like Scarborough and Night Riders and Wildhood and stuff like that.
I think so. I haven't gone back to look at the episode, and I'm pretty sure that's the one that I'm thinking of as well. But you remember there was one that we did. It was supposed to be such a quick episode. And then it ended up just kind of becoming a lot longer. I would say that was true for a number of episodes, but yeah. But there was one that I just recall that we really got into the weeds of the Canadian film industry, and I thought it was just like a really interesting discussion that we had.
Yeah, I believe that's it. So yeah, I'm going to link to those 3 shows, and like you're right about us doing the interview together, where there was a couple times where we were going to do it together, and then like last minute, you know, the guest was like, "Oh, can we change the time?" It didn't end up working for you, and you're like, "I'll just let you do it instead." And yeah, you're right. I think that's the only time I've also done like a joint interview, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. And I thought it was great, and Kelsey was such a great guest to talk about her movie. I always feel with the Unholy Trinity of Folk Horror, I was so disappointed that episode didn't do better numbers than it should have. Now, I know, it's never about the numbers.
It's not about the numbers, Dakota.
I was like,
it's not about the numbers.
I know. But it was just one of those ones where I was like, I feel like this is a popular-ish enough subject. It was Halloween. The Halloween episodes always did kind of well. And we're talking about 3 classic horror movies, including one very, very popular one with The Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man movie. And it just kind of like did okay numbers. And it's just like, oh, this is kind of disappointing. And so I've always felt bad about that episode not doing better, because I was like, it's such a good episode. We had such a great conversation. The movies are so good. And I don't know why it didn't do better, which was it was a little sad on my part.
I get it. I mean, I think especially because we both enjoyed doing it so much. Like I genuinely enjoyed watching those films and like finding more research, like doing more research about them and things like that. And yeah, it's you've had that for a number of episodes though. Not a number, I shouldn't say. It's not like so many, but I do like there is a few episodes that I know you feel very strongly about how good they are and how interesting they are, and they for whatever reason just don't work out and then ones that maybe you're not. Actually, I'm not going to finish that thought. No, I will.
Well, no, there's
the ones that like
episodes
that like they just do really well, but you can't really figure out why this particular one kind of hit.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
Yeah, or one that I like put on the schedule because I'm like, well, I need to have an episode and one that's not going to be a ton of, prep work, so we can just talk about, insert new movie here or whatever. And like we'll do gangbusters. I'm like, how is this possible? And then the ones that we put so much love and care into and it like barely, makes a dent. I'm just like, why? Why are people not listening to this specific one?
That's just how it goes, I think. And I think
it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one thing that we were kind of talking about this before we came on, but it's like having persistence in doing a project like this podcast. I think I admire that greatly from you, that the idea that you've been doing this for how many years now?
Oh, it's like, I think this is now the 8th year of doing it.
And you've had co-hosts come and go, but this has primarily been you. Like it's been your thing. You've been the one doing it. And it is not easy to keep up motivation for it. And so I think regardless of getting wrapped up in numbers and things like that, but it's because when you pick topics that are interesting or you find the interesting angle to them, those are the kind of things that I think anyways, why you continue to do the show, because you're able to talk about these things and like find out more about them through your own curiosity, your own knowledge, and like through discussions as well. But yeah, it's a funny thing though. It's when you're able to put that much effort into it, and you do. I don't think you like. I know people who know how much effort you put into this podcast, and like with the sound and with the editing and things like that. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. I just showed up. I didn't do very much. I literally just showed up.
well, thank you. I really appreciate it. That means so much because you do know how much effort I put into it. So I do very much appreciate your kind words there, Rachel.
No, and I just like the last thing I will say is like genuinely thank you, because like I said, you took me out of my comfort zone in time that I think I really did need that. But also, a big part of this kind of career shift that I've had, this podcast was a big part of it as well. And so the fact that, I don't want to say gotten too busy, but the fact that I just feel like I'm not able to juggle all these things anymore. I'm repeating myself, but like, it's only a good thing that's been a bit of a knockoff. It's unfortunate, but it is a positive effect in many ways. So thank you for allowing me to come on here week after week. I have enjoyed it quite a bit. And I will be back. This is not a goodbye forever.
Well, good. So I guess I'm going to ask you here for last time for now. Where can people find you and what have you been working on?
You can find me on rachelho.com, and I'm on Twitter at _RachelKH and on Instagram at _RachelKH. What am I working on? By the time this goes out, I will have an interview with Sam Taylor Johnson for her Amy Winehouse biopic, however you want to say it. Should come out on CBC Arts the week that comes out, or the week that the movie is released. Other than that, I don't really know what I'm going to have out at that point. But yeah, go there. I don't know. Go look at stuff. And also you did a lot of hot dog stuff. I just want to say that as well. You did more hot dog stuff than I've done in a very, very long time. So well done on you for
that. Thank you. Yes. Well, that also goes to the incredible work that Jeff Ballmer, Paulo Bautista, and Brody Cottenham also helped out with that too. And I'm very proud of the site's coverage of what we managed to do with that. And I would love that to be the standard going forward for festivals and things like that. I know that's not going to be the case. This was a very unique situation, but nonetheless, I am incredibly proud of the work that we've been publishing. So if you've not been checking out ContraZoomPod.com, please do so. Seattle International Film Festival just wrapped, so reviews are now going up for that. They've been slowly going up. I've also got a new review of the Caitlin Cronenberg movie Humane that I wrote, I believe. And then Paulo Bautista also has one for Rue, which is a nominee for the Canadian Screen Awards this year, which we'll be doing an episode, I believe, next week. I think that might be the case, which we'll be talking about Canadian Screen Award nominees and winners. But yes, this has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. Follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at ContraZoomPod. What movies are you most looking forward to this year? Send an email to ContraZoomPod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.